Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Yara Azoka. I'll be your presenter today. We'll just wait a couple of minutes for others to join us. Just 2 minutes. Let's just wait a couple of more minutes because we still have people joining us. Okay, welcome to today's webinar. We'll just give 1 more minute. We still have people joining us. All right, everyone. Hello again. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Yara Azoka. I'm a senior instructor of English, Abu Dhabi University College of Arts and Science. And today I'm going to talk about the 3 roles every teacher should know. And let me give you a little bit of my background. So my background is both in English language and literature and education. And currently I'm a PhD candidate with the Deakin University, Australia. Out of this experience of over 20 years, which is mostly in higher education, I really feel passionately about this topic of, the teacher's roles. So let me, with that brief introduction, take you to today's presentation. So today, hopefully, will be a reflection session. So I hope that you will be able to come with me on this journey of self-reflection, reflect on your pedagogy, on your teaching and learning, primarily focus on your roles as teachers, whether sage on the stage, guide on the side, and meddler in the middle. And also, a part of this presentation will be dedicated to focusing on flipped learning and this new pedagogy, and also the revisited teacher roles within flipped learning. So welcome to today's webinar. Let me start by asking you, who is the teacher? Who's a teacher in your context? So we always think of the teacher as the teacher in, a formal setting, in an organization, in a school, and that is very true. However, also there is like the teacher figure or the teacher role that is taken by other members in society, whether be it a sibling, be it a grandfather, be it a community leader, be it someone with an expertise that they would like to share with you and you benefit from them. And hence that is a teaching and learning environment. So I would like you to take into consideration that when we're talking about teaching and learning, it is not only about the formal type of teacher that is in an organization, but about anyone who is involved in a teaching and learning environment. Having said that, I would like you to take a moment, use your Mentimeter. You can see the number on the screen. Do take a moment and share with me your ideas about how teaching should be or what teaching should be. by just adding, your own opinion or your own view on things. Please go ahead and share your ideas. And since this session is all about, self-reflection, there is no wrong answer. This is your perspective on what teaching should be. Perhaps you're a parent and you're thinking what teaching should be. Perhaps you're a student, perhaps you're a teacher. Though this webinar is mostly dedicated to teachers, but it's still, open to the public. Yes, practical, interactive. I really like this choice of word practical, because that takes us to, what type of student are we, is graduating with what type of skills? And practical also. Are we just teaching theories? Are we teaching practical application of skills? Is there a transfer of these skills to real world scenarios? Yes. So we'll just wait one more minute in case we have others who would like to contribute. Teaching should be, yes, accessible, reflective, very good. Yes, reflective. And the main first part of this webinar is to ask you to reflect. Reflect on your practices, reflect on your role, reflect on, the use of space, the use of time, the use of tools, the use of resources within your teaching learning environment. All right. Thank you very much. So now I would like to ask you, take a moment and go back in time to a wonderful class. And I hope you don't have to go back too far. Go back in time to a wonderful class, a wonderful learning and teaching experience that you've had. What was that class? What made it so wonderful? So just 1 minute, think about that. What made it so great? And hopefully you will be able to rank the following according to that memory, according to that experience. What made that class wonderful? What made that experience wonderful? And please rank your preference. So I put here a couple of things that I think about when I'm thinking, a class was wonderful. And from the literature, what people perceive is an effective class, a wonderful class. So we finished on time. That's one of the options. We covered a lot of material, material coverage and content coverage. The students were excited in the class, the way your learners feel about something. There was no noise today. Perhaps, a reason why, something will be, a class would be wonderful is for someone to say, there was some very good class management today and there was no noise today. Everyone was present. The fact that you had no one absent, the fact that you had your participants all present in that learning environment was something that you perceived as wonderful or great. My students did very well on the quiz. So you felt, you could see that you can see the results, you were proud, they could see the results, so that was a wonderful class. I tried a new idea today. You experimented, you tried a new idea, you were happy that you took a step into that change. So that is a reason to be happy about a wonderful class. And, simple logistics. I had 3 free classes to prepare very well, and I really wanted to, put myself in the shoes of teachers who are always, teaching back to back, having not enough free time to reflect, to prepare. So we all sometimes have great ideas, things that we would like to experiment with and to try, yet we don't have enough time to prepare for it. So having, free classes is really something amazing that you were given that opportunity or, that chance. So if I take a look, thank you for your contribution. So if I take a look at what is ranking, in your opinion, as a wonderful teaching and learning experience, at the top here in front of us, we can see the students were excited in the class. And I'm so happy to see that you've chosen that collectively The excitement in the learning process is something really amazing and valuable. And also there's a lot of literature that talks about bringing happiness, bringing the elements of fun into learning. And when we say they were excited in the class, hopefully we are also talking about the way that there was some social learning, peer learning, construction of knowledge together. So that is all underlying behind the fact that your students were excited in the class. The second one that's ranked up here, I tried a new idea today, so I'm very happy that my audience today is all for trying new ideas, because today we will share with you some new techniques and pedagogy that I would like you to take on, hopefully. The third one, and as I said earlier, this is the realistic one, which is I had 3 free classes to prepare very well. In a lot of cases, teachers are always, overworked. You're teaching back to back. You would like just to have half an hour, 1 hour to be able to freely, prepare, have some time to reflect, look at what you have just finished, what lessons we can learn from what we've just finished, and, improvise, improve. Our work as teachers is always, a continuous cycle of, learning, moving ahead, engaging, etc., etc. The fourth one, we covered a lot of material. That's also very realistic. You cover content. You're happy that you're covering parts of your curriculum. That makes you feel great. You feel like you're not behind. So these are realistic things that actually affect our teaching and learning environment. Again, equally ranking with we covered a lot of material. We can see at number 5, everyone was present. Yes, so you were hopefully able to engage with them. Number 6, my students did very well on the quiz. So I'm very happy to see that we did not rank the quiz as a number 1 priority, because that is a form of assessment. And though we, of course, would like to aim that everybody does well on the quiz, but it cannot be, the main frame of thinking that we opt to, use as guidelines for our teaching. Number 7, we finished on time. Also, the fact that you're worried about starting and finishing, also it makes a lot of sense that we take it into consideration. However, it's very good to see that it's not on the top of our, priorities. And there was no noise today. It's very, very, very nice to see that you did not mark the noise as a constant worry or an issue, because in balancing all the variables that you have in teaching and learning, there will be some noise, and hopefully if this is constructive noise, then it's really welcomed. It does not necessarily mean a lack of classroom management, etc., etc. You want to have a class that is alive. You want to have a class where students are engaged in a learning experience. So thank you very much for your contribution and input. Let me take you on to another, idea that builds on what you just, looked at. So can we see the connection between the idea of teaching and learning and how it is directly related to the use of time, to achieving your goals, to the use of space, to student activity, to, your role as a teacher? But you can see that I've hidden the teacher and focused more on teaching and learning, because that is the bigger picture. Not to say that the teacher doesn't have a big role. The teacher has a very big role, but we have to have some kind of, perspective in terms of where are we, what's our role, etc., etc., and focusing on the teaching and learning, especially balancing the teaching and learning, have to be balanced. Not all the time teaching does not necessarily all the time equal learning. There has to be some kind of intentional, checking of, is my teaching leading to learning? Are they learning, or am I just teaching? So this is part of the question that I want to, remind you of. Always ask yourself, as a teacher, are they learning more than am I teaching? Because you are teaching, it's part of your job. You're going to class, you intentionally have a plan, but did it work? To what extent did it work? How can I make it better? This is your own critical view and your own self-reflection. Having said that, I want to emphasize, a point which is called intentional classroom design. I like to call it intentional classroom design. Whether we are talking about classroom design in the literal sense, which is basically your floor plan and the way you devise, the way you want to have the seats, the tables, a discussion board, a bulletin board, a whiteboard, or a blackboard. Whatever your tools are, it's the intentional design of, the floor plan. And why is this very significant? Because the intentional design of the floor plan or the classroom actually has a direct impact on student role and teacher role when used effectively. In addition to this literal sense of intentional classroom design, there is also the more holistic sense of intentional classroom design, which actually takes us to all the other details like what are your goals? What do you aim to achieve by the end of today's class? What are the learning outcomes for your students? So on another more holistic level, also that all, in my opinion, goes under intentional classroom design. So, which brings me to the question that I would like you to ask yourself. Where do you see yourself? Where do you see yourself and your role as an instructor? Do you see yourself as the sage on the stage, as you can see in the first picture? Do you see yourself as the guide on the side? Where do you see yourself? Because really, this is a practice of self-reflection that you have to actually, have a check on your ego, have a check on what you do, and actually look at it more with the eye of a scholar and say, how much time do I spend talking? How much time do my students talk? Who is actually doing the activity of learning? Is the class only dedicated to the activity of teaching? Do I have time for the activity of learning? And all these concerns, they're all legitimate concerns, but today's webinar hopefully will allow you more time to reflect. Who am I in class? What is my role in class? Am I the sage on the stage, the know-it-all, the provider of wisdom, the one that imparts knowledge onto the students, the one that explains, information and content? Or am I the guide on the side who is ready to facilitate, to supervise, to give feedback, and so on and so forth? Perhaps I can challenge you to even think of yourself in another role, which is very much a development from guide on the side, but even taking it higher to a more higher level of critical thinking, which is meddler in the middle. So I hope that you can see that you are not entirely utilizing all your time and space just to be the sage on the stage, and that you are having a sort of a variety in your roles, perhaps guide on the side, perhaps meddler in the middle. And the meddler in the middle is the person who actually takes the discussion to a higher level, who actually pushes the students to have more critical thinking, deeper understanding of their material. So keep this in mind, and let us take a look at, the remaining of this webinar, and hopefully, ask you to engage into challenging yourself. If you are someone who's always comfortable as sage on the stage, it is time to consider being guide on this side. It's time to consider being meddler in the middle. If you are someone who's already, navigating between sage on the stage and guide on the side, perhaps we would like you to even navigate some further and experiment some further with your role as meddler in the middle. Having said that, we cannot talk about these three roles a teacher could play without referring to Professor Erica McWilliam, who is a pioneer in this area. So for the scope of today's presentation, I will not be able to go into her work in detail, but I do encourage you to read her work because it is really inspiring. Let us take a look at some simplified definitions of these roles. So the sage on the stage is a teaching method where a professor imparts knowledge by lecturing to their class. Students are expected to take notes, memorize, they deal with this information with little feedback from the professor. The professor is using a one-way transmission mode in which the students are mostly passively absorbing the material or interacting with the material on their own, in their own, time and place. So mostly it's about the professor. The professor, when we say the professor who gives a lecture, it's, as we said, a one-way communication model. And this is more referred to in the literature as the teacher-centered model or the traditional education model. Another brief definition for guide on the side is the educator who has that method of providing students with occasional advice, assistance, interruptions, feedback, and correction, but at the same time, allowing them simultaneously to explore the subjects independently, having interaction among themselves. So there's that, as we saw in the pictures before, there's that like distance. The educator is allowed to step back a little bit, and the students are allowed at the forefront of the teaching and learning platform, and they are allowed also the opportunities to have that peer learning environment. Of course, be mindful that as an educator or a teacher, you are never absent from the picture. This is not to say that you are not in the picture. This is you are in the picture, but you are intentionally allowing time and space for your students to take on responsibility for their learning, to engage directly into the subject matter or the subject area, and you are available. You are available to them whenever they need, assistance. And I like what Stanton does when he juxtaposes both sage on the stage and, guide on the side. And he says, and I'm quoting, "You can be a sage on the stage in your classroom, using your expertise to share knowledge with your students through lectures and presentations. Or you can be a guide on the side, using your skills to engage your students in first-hand learning through projects and experiences." And I like the way that he engages, juxtaposes both of them. But what I'm proposing right now, what I would like to tell you is that as we look at, the possibility of having the sage and the guide, I'd like to propose that why not have all of them? Why not engage in, the use of your role as sage on the stage, wherever effective, according to the context, and guide on the side and meddler in the middle. And to take you into the meaning further of the meaning of meddler in the middle, I would like you to watch this video with me. This is from Kevin Honeycutt, and he's an advocate, passionate advocate of education. And what I like from this short interview is that he puts the roles of the teachers in context of whatever is happening around us in the world. So let's take a look at this video.
Things can happen when educators step outside their boxes and try new tools and approaches. I was able to visit with Kevin Honeycutt before he spoke to educators at Oklahoma Career Tech's summer conference. So Kevin, just how dramatically are our classrooms changing?
I see some change in some classrooms. What I think the other question, it might be, how much is the world changing? Because the job of the classroom is to prepare kids for that world. So I hope they're changing. I hope they're evolving. I hope they're becoming more like what the world is doing. So what's the world doing? Well, it seems like that what the world is asking us to do is prepare kids who know how to communicate, collaborate, cooperate, and learn when they need to learn. To not to memorize so much as know how to know, right? So if I hire you, I kind of want you to be self-reliant. I don't want to have to coach you and manage you, but you just take off and go. And I think that's what we're looking for. And I come to a conference like this where it's all about empowering kids to become self-directed learners. That's exciting because I think that's where we all should be, getting kids ready for this world and to know how to take off and learn on their own.
We've heard the old term, no longer a sage on the stage, but a guide on the side. Is that what a teacher's role is now?
Even that for sure, a guy on the side, but also how about a meddler in the middle? Someone just messing with things. Like you find a fact online and I say, how do you know that's true? Because you just want to be done. Because in the old days, kids would say, I'm done, because we did this to them with worksheets. It was possible to be done. But no startup and no company wants you to just be done. It's all about iteration. I mean, what iPhone are we on by now? It wasn't about having one and handing it in and saying, I'm done. So asking questions all the time. Whenever you feel like you want to answer a question, don't do that. Don't steal that opportunity from them, but ask them, how could you find that out? Because there's a million different ways to find out now. I like to say to kids that no one can stop you but you.
From an instructor's perspective, how hard is it to keep someone's attention in today's world where all this information is available and all this information is coming at them?
Right. If you are the sage on the stage, very hard. You know, if you're trying to be the infotainment for that class, in a block schedule, for instance, it's even longer. But that shouldn't have been our job probably the whole time. All right? It should have been letting the kids, if the kids are driving their own learning, if they're deeply interested in what they're doing, if they're solving problems and staying after school because they're not done yet, it's not so hard to keep their attention. If we can leverage the devices and the information they have at the palm of their hands and teach them how to whet their appetite for all of that learning, I don't think it has to be hard. I think if we're just going wonk, 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 it's never been harder because we have to compete with all that other stuff. I would call that stuff resources.
So that's the takeaway for instructors. What about parents?
We've got to get all of us on the same page. I'm a big fan of having parent nights where we just say, let's work together, can we? They take these devices home, they bring them to school. Let's build the filter between their ears and help them make better choices wherever they go. Let's stop having it be about a mechanical filter that chooses for them, and let's build kids who know what to do, who make good decisions. And mom and dad, there's no cruise control. You're going to have to, I'm sorry, that the bad news is that you have to talk to your kids every day about how they use technology. And the good news is exactly the same thing. You get to talk to your kids every day about how they use technology. We're going to have to get in the game. I like to say today kids are raising themselves on digital playgrounds and no one's on recess duty. We got to get there, right? And that's exhausting for some of us who've long in the tooth. We've been in this for a while, but I think it's okay to role model for kids that humans have to continue learning to be successful. We don't get to finish, get a diploma, and work for 30 years. We've got to learn every day.
And that just sounds like some of your best advice for students as well.
Right. Learn every day. Get better every day. Use this, right? They say if you rest, you rust. But there's a lot of research on that. How well you use this and how much you use this. It gets sharper with use, you know. But if they're not doing that, if they're on cruise control. The other thing I noticed is kids snack on other people's brilliance, but they have it in the palm of their hands to make their own. And I like to ask kids, what have you made? What belongs to you? That's why I like the maker movement and the STEAM movement. Kids are actually making things, doing things, applying what they've learned. You know, at the very top of revised Bloom's taxonomy is the word create. But often in classrooms, kids don't create anything. They replicate, they copy, they emulate, but they don't create. Well, now we look at STEM and we look at STEAM. We have this chance to let kids actually create, to own their learning. At the highest level of learning, you can make something out of what you've learned. That's when you marry it. Everything else is dating or renting with an option to buy.
All right, Kevin Honeycutt, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So how soon?
Okay, so I like to watch this video over and over again because there's just so much to take from this video. There's so much to emphasize. So some of the things that they resonate with me is the need for dialogue, an open dialogue between parents and teachers regarding what is happening with our students, what are our needs, how are we utilizing technology, which is so close to our students, and how are we able to speak their language and utilize these tools, these phones, smartphones, these tablets, their computers, their continuous access to the internet. How are we able to, capitalize on that? Another point also is that how Kevin is always talking about, the different roles the teacher plays, and then see how empowering it is to really self-reflect and say, yes, I have that power. I can be empowering and not only have that power. So I hope that you've enjoyed this short video. Let me suggest to you that keeping all of this as background in mind, there are ways in which you can have more time in your class, because this is like whenever I have a conversation with teachers and ask them about what's their worry or what's one of their top concerns, or what would they like to change about their practices, they always say, but there is no time to apply this, or there is no time to address this. Or I would like to be able to give more attention to some of my weaker students, or more attention to some of my very talented students, yet there is no time because I have a schedule, I have to teach this much load. Can I tell you that there is a way to have more time in class? This is not the magic wand that will fix everything, but this, I hope, will be something you will consider. There's also a way to have more effective use of technology. We know that our students are digital natives. Most likely the teachers with a generation at least gap will be digital immigrants. Perhaps the younger teachers are more in tune to using these devices, but generally speaking, there's a technology gap between our students and ourselves. So also there is a way to have more effective use of technology. And hopefully all of this will reach a deeper learning experience for your students, and hopefully happier, more meaningful, more relevant learning experience for your students, where you can have space and time to engage in group work, in pair work, where hopefully the peer support is there and available, accessible, and most importantly also the teacher support is available and accessible on the spot in the classroom. Let me tell you that there is a way where you can leverage your energy and power in your contribution as sage on the stage, or guide on the side, or meddler in the middle. And when I'm saying, and a lot of people in education would agree that there is so much flexibility in what flipped learning has to offer. And this is the focus of the remaining of this webinar, which is, what is flipped learning? What do we mean by flipped learning? What are we exactly flipping or turning around? And how does that affect the learning and teaching environment in my class? And I hope that you will be able to see, what parts of it you would like to try, maybe what parts of it are you still hesitant about. So I would encourage you to read some more about it and Google some more stories about flipped learning. So for the time being, let us take a look at this video, which actually introduces flipped learning. It's a short video. Please enjoy.
The flipped classroom is a new method of teaching that is turning the traditional classroom on its head. Every day, thousands of teachers deliver the exact same lesson in class to millions of students. Every night, millions of students sit over the exact same homework, trying to figure out how to solve it. The flipped classroom is turning this upside down. Traditionally, students listen to lectures and take tests in class, and read textbooks and work on problem sets at home. In flipped teaching, students first study the topic by themselves, typically using video lessons on YouTube, and then apply the knowledge by solving problems and doing practical work in class. Modern schools who flipped their classroom report many benefits. 1. It allows all students to learn at their own pace, as videos can be watched again. 2. It's more efficient, as students enter the classroom prepared to contribute. 3. It enriches the classroom, as more time can be spent on group work and projects. 4. Doing homework in class allows students to help each other, which benefits both the advanced and less advanced learners. Flipping also brings changes for teachers. Traditionally, teachers engage most with the confident students who ask questions. Flipping allows teachers to target the students who really need help, instead of just those who are confident. Also, instead of instructing from the front, teachers guide on the side. This allows them to work more closely with individuals or small groups. Teachers that are not great presenters can use third-party videos to explain the concept and focus on methods of teaching that suit their style, such as project work or experiments. Once video lectures are made available online, teachers don't need to give the same lecture over and over again. Again, they gain more time to focus on the needs of their class. Many scholars also argue that the flipped classroom model promotes equal learning opportunities, as all kids get the same attention when doing their homework. Currently, kids with caring parents, older siblings at home, or expensive private tutors have a clear advantage over those who don't. Let us know what you think. If you were a teacher, tell us if this model would be possible in your classroom. If you were a student, let us know if you would prefer learning in a flipped classroom.
All right. So I hope that you got an introduction about flipped learning, but now I'll go into more details about some of the aspects, some of the differences, and some of the advantages of flipping a class. So if we take a look at a traditional class and a flipped class, we can see that there is almost a chronological linear flow in the activities that happen in class, where in a traditional class, usually the teacher instructs, students take notes, students follow the guided instruction, whatever activity is happening, if there's an activity in a traditional class, and then the teacher gives an assessment, and then the students take home the homework. And the teacher usually would assign homework, even if it could be possibly for every lesson, for every class. It could be homework that is after the unit is finished. So some kind of application that will happen as homework and will happen in the space of home. In a flipped classroom, this division between what happens at home and what happens in the classroom is literally flipped. So the instruction does happen in a form of a video, in a form of an electronic form, and it's given to the student, and the student has access to this instructional material before coming to class. It is a requirement that the student will watch the recorded lesson or the recorded lecture or the recorded PowerPoint before they come to class. When they come to class, this is the bottom line difference, is that class time is now dedicated to an application, on-the-spot application, hands-on learning, and consequently, hopefully, deeper understanding of the concepts, application, and connections are made. And learning is becoming meaningful as students are sharing the experience together, because their application is not done at home in their own individual domain, in their own individual space, in their own, if you like, isolation at home. It is done in the space of the classroom, in the collective space of the classroom. And this is the main difference between a traditional class and a flipped class. Let's shed light on, the structure of a flipped class by tying in the flipped classroom model with Bloom's taxonomy. So in a traditional class, most of the basic Bloom's taxonomy skills that have to do, with remembering, understanding, and, even applying is happening, as a lecture-based. Is happening where the teacher is the sage on the stage, imparting that knowledge onto the students. And then the more challenging, the top of the pyramid of Bloom's taxonomy, which is the analyzing, evaluating, and creating, is actually being given to the student as a form of homework or project with some kind of later, a submission. When is it happening? It's happening at home. Does the student have access to help, immediate access to help? The student is most likely having no immediate access to help, because it's not logical that you are going to be able to answer their questions 24/7. And therefore, the flipped classroom utilizes that valuable time that you have with your students for the more, challenging skills. Instead of giving the simpler skills, the remembering, the understanding, and applying, giving it your classroom time, your classroom energy, in a very passive sense where it's just teacher-centered, flipping the class enables you to utilize your sage on the stage abilities, but in a more flexible form, where it is for the student and not really misusing class time. The student is able to watch that video, access that content, access your wisdom, access your sage on the stage, but use it really effectively. Come to class and apply with the classmates as well. Let's take a look at the floor plan, if you like, of what a typical class that is more emphasized around sage on the stage in that learning environment versus a flipped classroom, as you can see, where it's no longer about the sage on the stage. It's the guide on the side, and hopefully even the middler in the middle. You can see that in the first slide, the students are seated in a passive way. They are receiving the information, they're receiving the content. And we are not saying that this is not valuable content. We are saying it is valuable, but put it in a vessel, put it in a way in which you don't sacrifice class time, because class time is very valuable. Remember that we are competing with other distractions. Our students are always, distracted easily. We lose their attention. So why put them in a situation where they are already passive, so more inclined not to be, active, and utilize that very precious class time for effective hands-on learning and teaching. Having said that, having given you an orientation or introduction into flipped learning, I would like you to take some time and look at the following variables that I've compiled for you here. And they range from, different ideas and things that you might consider before you actually say, I'm ready, I would try flipped learning, or perhaps you are not. So I'll read them just to make them clearer for everyone. I like the idea, but I'm not sure if the school administration will support it. I like the idea, but I'm not convinced it will work for my classes. I don't like the idea. I prefer traditional classes. I think videos will take a long time to make. I will try flipped learning if other teachers at school try it as well. I like the idea, but my students don't have enough technological support or not enough Wi-Fi or gadgets to watch the video before class. And last but not least, I like it, but I am afraid parents will not support it. So please do use your Mentimeter. Do rank them according to your preference. I'll give you 2 to 3 minutes. We'll wait for everybody. Let's engage in this. What is your understanding and readiness regarding flipped learning from the orientation that you had today? So please go ahead and rank them according to priority. What is it that concerns you? And I'll be just waiting for the responses. Let's wait 2 to 3 minutes to allow everyone to have a chance to respond. It's very interesting to see, what is your view on this after such a brief overview of flipped learning. I know there's a lot of detail in the options. That's why we'll wait until everyone gets a chance to, read them and make a decision about them. And they're all, legitimate concerns. They're all, in a certain context, each one of them is legitimate. It's very interesting to see how people rank things differently. Yes, we will wait some more for everybody, so feel free to read on and make a decision. And also, if you have any questions, we will be addressing those questions by the end of the webinar. So I can see that, the video is taking a long time to make, is on the top of the priorities. And also it keeps shifting with the third place, which is if other teachers would try it, I would try it. We can see the support from school administration is important. Yes. All right, so I'll just make some comments as others contribute and, add their views. Let's take a look at, please continue adding your views. I'll just, for the sake of time, start taking a look at the first place is I think videos will take a long time to make. And again, I completely understand that, as teachers, you're always running out of time. So definitely, if this is going to be something you will be doing on your own, this may take a long time. If this is something that will open, the opportunity for more collaboration among a team of teachers, if we can encourage a community, a learning community in our school and in our organization, perhaps, a couple of teachers could form a task force and, collaborate to make some videos, and then everybody can share them. Also, be mindful that there are a lot of videos that are very good quality, even on YouTube, which you can utilize and use because they fit into the content of your lesson plan. So whether you make the videos, this is great, but if as step one into trying flipped learning, you utilize videos that are already published, good quality videos, feel free to use that. That will save you time until you are able to, for example, record your own videos. Again, also start with simple things like, for example, screencasting your voice, on your PowerPoint. I'm sure that as a teacher, you have, a list of PowerPoints that you feel like you go to them, they save you, they are very functional and effective. So again, just recording your voice, screencasting on your PowerPoint could be a form of video that you could utilize to start, your flipped learning class. A second one is I will try flipped learning if other teachers at school try it as well. Of course, trying something new, you feel much better and you will have more confidence if you are trying it as a team. And everything becomes easier as a team, collectively, the wisdom of, of the crowd, so to speak. So if we can have, again, the vibe of a learning community in our organization or at school where we try it with others. So if you can talk to, especially what we call a critical other or a critical friend, you trust their judgment and you collaborate to flip a certain small part of your, curriculum, that will be great if you can have a team of teachers. Perhaps you can enlist the help of your IT specialist at school. We all know that there will be always one teacher or two teachers who are really very much technologically savvy, and they will jump to the opportunity to help you. So that will be a place that you can feel comfortable and confident to try on something new. We have to remember that, trying something new, change you might always have resistance. So try with a smaller part, collaborate with a trusted friend, and hopefully things will work for you. And you learn from that experience to see if that's suitable for you or not. The third place so far is it's about, I like the idea, but I'm not sure if school administration will support it. I would say that is really something to take into consideration. Talk to at least your line manager, whether head of department, unit head, talk to them, engage in a conversation saying, I will be using this methodology, or if you put the label flipped learning or not put the label, you can just say, I will be, asking my students to watch a set of videos prior to class because we are doing a hands-on project or something. I don't think anybody will be against that. Sometimes the label, perhaps I'm being optimistic, sometimes the label flipped learning could be alarming to some who do not know it, but definitely engage in a conversation with school administration or your line manager to just make sure that there's transparency, that, I'm going to be utilizing this different teaching method so that everybody is aware of what's happening. So actually what you're doing is utilizing valuable class time much more efficiently than if you just lectured. So I hope that with time, they will see your point and actually you will have the support of your administration. But that is very much a legitimate concern. The fourth one is, I like the idea, but I'm not convinced it will work for my classes. I understand the hesitation because anything new, you may have concerns about, will they be able to watch it at home? Like, do they have the facility, the Wi-Fi, et cetera, et cetera? would they want to watch it at home? So there are techniques where teachers can hold their students accountable, like a short quiz at the beginning of class before you engage in the activity, like for example a submission of some sort, something to check that they actually watched the video before they came to class. And that's up to you to decide. You are the expert in your own context. So also, we can see that number 3 has come to the top, which is, I like the idea, but my students don't have enough technological support, not enough Wi-Fi or gadgets to watch the videos before class. The same, which is this going to work because the students have a buy-in and they believe it and they like it and they're going to do it? Or is this not going to work because they don't have the ability to do that before class? So all of these things are, legitimate concerns. Again, you are the one who's an expert on the background of your students. Sometimes there are things that we are not aware of, like socioeconomic factors, etc. But still, I think with the availability of the internet, with the fact that a lot of our classes are happening either online or they're happening as a hybrid mode, this is something to take into consideration. But I think it should not stop you entirely from trying this new method. If not completely transforming your course, I'm not saying that, I'm saying try it with one unit, try it with a chapter, see, from experience, certain, skills that your students keep asking you about. There's a weakness there. They keep asking for more, explanation. So why not put that in a recorded form where they can have access to it anytime? They can repeat, they can pause, they can show it to their parents, they can show it to each other as peers, and so on and so forth. So going to the bottom of the list, the 5th one is, I like the idea, but I'm not convinced it will work for my classes. We discussed that. The 6th one, I like it, but I'm afraid parents will not support it. So as a teacher, I understand you're working with the management of your organization or your school, and as well you're working with your, your parents as partners. So definitely, as you usually send, updates, or you usually, communicate with the teachers, perhaps you communicate with your students, with your school LMS system, which is learning management system, whichever platform you usually use to update your parents about what is going on with their children or the students. Utilize that space to give an orientation, a heads up. This is what we will be opting to do. We will be flipping classes for the next week. Hopefully we will have your support in this. Can you kindly encourage your son or daughter or student to actually take the video seriously, etc., etc. We expect them to be ready for class, etc. So a brief overview and orientation of some sort that, giving the parents heads up that this is happening, I think will be useful. But you still, until you actually engage in this, you will not really be able to predict everything, because again, using a new method of teaching has its, ups and downs. Whenever you're trying to change anything, whenever you're trying to adopt a new method, there will be some kind of resistance. But the more you put, the more organization you put in it, the smaller the change. Do it in smaller steps. That hopefully will add to your, successful application of a new method. The last one, I don't like the idea. I prefer traditional classes. Again, it's put last. Thank you very much. I'm very happy that this audience is engaged with change and with shifting. We're saying, traditional classes are good. They are just not effective use of our precious classroom time. So you are a precious resource, but we would like to use that resource and make you utilize the space and the collective space of the classroom much more efficiently. So thank you very much for your contribution. Before we move on to the next slide, I'd like to remind you that I'll be answering questions at the end of this webinar. So it is ideal to think of change. We want to change for the benefit of our students. But let us take a look at a real success story from a school in the US that actually changed and flipped the whole school system. So I leave you with this last video because I found it really very interesting and a really nice summary to what we have been talking about. Please take a look.
So you see how they're in the same family.
What if you took the traditional school day and flipped it on its head? Not literally, of course, but having lessons offered at night at home and homework done by day in the classroom.
These ones, how would I do it?
That's the experiment underway at Clintondale High School, just outside Detroit, an area still reeling from the economic and social ills of the nearby city. The school serves many low-income families and faces tight budgets and declining enrollment.
So what's the number part that I'm going to need for all three?
Just 3 years ago, almost half of Clintondale's ninth graders were failing math, science, and English. And overall school performance was ranked in the lowest 5% in Michigan.
Is that the one you want me to go with?
Yeah.
Principal Greg Green decided to take a risk.
Frankly, we weren't doing very well, and so we had to make a change. I mean, we were desperate for change.
His aha moment came while coaching his 11-year-old son's baseball team. Having learned to record and post instructional videos for his players to watch outside of practice, he was struck by how much time was then left to focus on individual players on the field. He saw the educational potential, starting with the power of videos.
Kids can go back and watch them as many times as they want, and me as an instructor or expert, I don't have to redo that all the time, and I can spend my time with the students in class and actually assisting them. And so if I could do that with 11-year-olds, imagine what we could do with 15 or 16-year-olds doing math.
Green went all in, flipping the entire school, urging his staff to rethink the use of technology and how it complements traditional teaching, and getting local businesses to help fund the effort.
So the legislative branch makes the laws.
Now lectures are recorded and posted online.
The American Civil War lasted from 1861 to 1865.
Or teachers can assign outside videos from the popular Khan Academy and TED Talks.
Pretty small, yeah.
Students watch these videos as homework outside of class.
Why do you say it's plutonium?
In class, students now do what was once considered homework, assignments designed to test learning comprehension. Clintondale teachers say this allows more time for one-on-one help and often encourages students to collaborate in problem solving. But English teacher Rob Damron said it took some convincing.
When we first did this, it was funny to look around that staff meeting and look at a lot of staff members, especially the ones that have been here 25, 30 years and saying, what are you talking about? What's a blog? What's a Google group?
Apostrophes makes a noun show ownership or possession.
For teaching for 20 years, I know what lessons kids are going to have a problem with. But I think with doing this flipped approach, there's problems I didn't even know existed. So you really can't hide back there in the corner and say, yeah, I got it. And then the teacher sees later on, well, no, you really didn't get it.
One problem the school faced head-on, students who can't afford or don't have access to technology outside of class. They're given extra time in the school's media lab.
Segregation before 1954.
Taking the technology-driven approach further, some lesson plans are now tailored to have students use the latest trends in social media.
Thanks to the 19th Amendment, us women have the right to vote.
We deserve to vote. We deserve to vote.
Like this project that required constitutional amendments to be summed up in 6 seconds for the popular website Vine. Green says that taken all together, after 3 years, the flip is paying off.
Our ACT gains have shown doubling the national average as far as ACT gains. State testing, we've had some mixed results on that. And we've also seen an increase in graduation rates to almost 90%, college acceptance rates at 80%.
Senior Darrell Wallace Jr. is one example. His grades have risen from a 2.5 GPA as a freshman to 3.5 as a senior. And he says the flip has played a big role. He now watches videos on his cell phone while taking the bus home into a rough section of Detroit, where he lives with his mother and 4 sisters.
I really looked at the videos more because I knew I might not have as much time at home because my sisters are in college and they need the computer, so I'm like, I can do it on my phone. And the bus ride is like 30 minutes, so I probably can get like half of my assignment done.
Daryl's mother, Sabrina Young, also likes the flipped model, saying there's only so much she can do to help with traditional homework.
Especially algebra. So him doing it at school is a plus for him and as well as me because I just didn't remember the majority of it.
The popularity of online learning has surged in recent years, and flipped classrooms have started popping up everywhere, from elementary schools to some of the nation's top universities. Clintondale is the first U.S. high school to do a total flip. Harvard's Justin Reich has been studying the trend and says he's cautiously optimistic.
What is exciting to me about the flipped classroom is that it gets teachers asking two really important fundamental questions. What are the best ways for me to use my time, especially the very precious time I have in classrooms with my students? And then what are the kinds of direct instruction that I could provide that could be digitized so that people could watch it again?
You'll notice that the last set of notes I gave you were for week 5.
But Reich says that flipping alone isn't enough. As with any lesson plan, it all depends on exactly what's being offered.
If what we see from the flipped classroom is that we take bad lectures and uninteresting worksheet problems that characterize a lot of the experience that students have in schools, and we simply flip the order of those two things, the odds that we see significant improvement in our schools is pretty low.
And so now we're going to be taking the derivative with respect to t.
Meanwhile, some individual teachers are experimenting with the flipped classroom on their own. 3 years ago, Stacy Roshan flipped her upper-level math classroom at the private Bullis High School outside of Washington, D.C., where students pay up to $35,000 a year in tuition.
What's the derivative of pi r squared h?
She's
All right. So thank you very much, everyone. I hope that with this webinar, you got an introduction into, flipped learning, that I hope that this webinar has enabled a space for self-reflection on your role as a teacher. I hope that you can see that there is a space where you can navigate the sage on the stage, guide on the side, and meddler in the middle, and that to the benefit of your teaching and learning environment within your own context. So thank you very much. I will now welcome questions. If you'd like to unmute, I think raise your hand if you have a question, and my Ms. Fida, my IT assistant, will be, giving you the platform. So you can just raise your hand if you have a question. Yes, go ahead, Abdurrahman. Go ahead.
I cannot enter my account on Teams.
Sorry?
I try to connect to my account on Teams, but I cannot sign in.
Yes, please let Miss Fida help you. All right, thank you. Yes, Marco, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for the awesome presentation. I really like that.
You're welcome, my pleasure.
Yeah, my question is, especially in areas where technology is an issue, like the broadband, Wi-Fi, and computers, how would you think you would implement the flipped classroom? Thank you.
So I think with any concern, thank you for your question. I think with any concern regarding, the quality of, access to the internet and et cetera, that your students may have, that's the environment that is outside your reach. So how much can we predict what's going on at home? Depends on, your own management of your class. Perhaps you can, what the literature suggests is an in-class flip or a flip in class, which is perhaps dedicate the first 10 minutes of class, a table on the side That's if we are conducting face-to-face, where the students within class time can access the technology, and then you will have, more than one zone of learning and teaching within your classroom, where perhaps those who were not able to access, whether they did not do it because they were like behind for whichever reason, or perhaps because, as you said, there was a problem with the technology or the access, they could access that in the class, while others do start the application. And that's the beauty of this model, is that you are the one who's in charge. You can navigate through different spaces, of allowing your students that access. I hope that that gives you a way out.
Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. Yes, Amna?
Good evening, Ms.
Good
Yara.
evening.
I would first of all like to thank you very much for this informative workshop, especially conducted for the teachers of today. I myself am a K-12 teacher, teaching here in a UK curriculum school and teaching high school students. So first of all, I would like to strongly agree with the pedagogy or the benefits of flipped classroom approach in our teaching these days, especially during the COVID situation, when majority of the students are studying at home, and we cannot expect them all to be awake in the morning, even though that as schools we are very much functional. So when this instructional approach will combine the video-based learning outside the classroom, I believe that the student engagement is still there. I myself have faced a challenge in the students' attitude when I'm imparting flipped learning. Can you just suggest me one or two ways on how I can address these challenges? Because one of these is primarily at my end, there is a regular requirement of increased review or increased feedback to whatever flipped classroom teaching I assign or classroom assignment I assign to my students. So if you can just guide on that, it would be very valuable. Thank you once again.
Okay, so I think
it would be very valuable.
Thank you
once again.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Amna. And perhaps I'm not going to be able to give you a complete solution, but if I understand the situation, I think sometimes you have to revisit the amount of content that you posted on the videos that they have to watch before they come to class. So perhaps if you find that that was a challenge, let's avoid posting a video of 1 hour. Let's avoid posting those long videos. Let's divide them into smaller, chunks. Let's link the video with a mini assignment where you would check knowledge and understanding in Bloom's taxonomy, the bottom parts of Bloom's taxonomy, before they come to the class, so that they're accountable, like before they actually engage the hands-on and the project and the higher thinking skills, that there was some kind of checking of their understanding in the video. Perhaps that could be helpful. Another thing that I would advise is that, ask the students, how could this engage with them in a conversation where they co-construct the style of which you're going to have the hands-on. For example, you can have a conversation with them or send them a survey and say, we did this last week. What do you think? How could we make it better? You could divide it into parts that talks about how can I make the video better? Perhaps you will have some students who really like it and say, could you change my video into a more fun video? Could you teach the same things or talk about the same things that I talked about, but in a Powtoon, for example? Enabling the students to feel that they are co-constructing their lessons is empowering. And I think one or two of these suggestions hopefully will make things easier for you. But we know that our work as teachers is not easy. So thank you very much for sharing. I hope the suggestions will be helpful. Do we have other questions? So.
No more questions, Ms. Yara.
All right.
No more raised hands.
Okay. So I'm just going to look at some of the chats and answer that. So there was a question about, for traditional universities, what you recommend immediately to follow up. So if I understand, you mean as is this easy and you can easily use it, or a follow-up to the activity? If you could elaborate some more. The person who wrote that question, the follow-up activity, or actually the activity that you engage with in your class with your students, this is actually the most challenging part of flipped learning, which is, what do I flip? What is the activity or the project? If your curriculum is based on only summative assessments, test-based assessments, then perhaps you would have to think of, what's an application, and all the knowledge builds up to, doing very well in the test. But if you have a project-based assessment, if you have an inquiry-based assessment, that would be easier to facilitate in terms of flipped learning, because you bring in the project, perhaps the initial stages of the project, into your application part of the class. And again, we have another question. Many countries have not, flipped learning. How can they be supported? So I think reading about this, watching other videos of other institutions, teacher stories, there are so many teachers who are sharing their stories. They're also sharing tips and techniques and steps exactly that take you into your lesson plan. How do I decide what is the content to put on the video? How do I decide what is my cognitive cutoff point? Or how do I decide what is left for the application in the class? So there's a lot available out there. Today's session is by all means not completely exhaustive, so you can actually look it up. I was hoping to just bring this flipped learning, method, into the scheme of talking about the SAGE and the Guide and the Medler. By all means, it would need more reading and more research, and perhaps also showing, having this discussion with your teachers, fellow teachers, as I said earlier, having a learning community where you share, your own concerns. Whenever you feel like, I want to try this, try it with, from experience, a topic or a lesson that students are always coming back to you and asking, again about, asking for repeated explanation, repeated, sharing of knowledge, where you are the sage on the stage and you are the provider of that knowledge. That is a key to, let me flip that part. Let me record a video about that and have the application in class, because it serves their needs. Also, there's a question, subjects, how can we use, for example, flipped learning for subjects like accounting? Again, wherever you could see there's theory and practice. There's theory and practice, there is room for flipped learning. So from your own curriculum, from your own learning objectives of your course and your learning goals for that session or that week. I would say do not flip less than a week, because you need to be able to see it's, the first thing you do is there will be a little bit of resistance. I don't know how much. And you need to explain this ahead of time to your students. Assure everyone that this is not, a high stake situation. So my advice is remove the grades from this, remove the high stake things that cause, anxiety amongst your learners. Ensure that this is an inclusive environment. Ensure that you will be accessible. Be ready for that. In a lot of cases, there's a lot of self-reflection on us that, I'm not going to be at the forefront of this. I'm not going to be the sage on the stage. I have to accept that it's okay for me not to talk throughout that time, not to be the first one who will, give the answer immediately. It's okay for me to strategically hold back and allow my students to strategically be at the forefront of my learning platform. Wherever, just to answer that question for accounting or other subjects, wherever there is a part of theory that needs an application, then definitely there is the space for flipped learning. And if you are going to opt for flipped learning, there is no rule for it. There is no, formula, do it fully throughout the semester, do it fully for the first 2 weeks, do it fully, this is your choice. You may feel like I would like to engage in a flipped learning, class or two, but my advice is don't do it less than a stretch of at least 3 hours instruction, whether this happens as 3 hours separate throughout the week or, 3 hours in one shot, that's up to you. But from my experience where I flip my classes, I do not do them for shorter than that, because I feel like once the students get into the rhythm of things, then you take them out of it, and that's not fair, because they just started to understand and benefit. And remember that you're going to be walking around them, you're going to be available there, so you could see what's happening, what's working, what's not. And as I gave the advice earlier to one of the audience members who asked about how do we make things better, is ask them, let them be co-constructors of what is happening. Engage with your students. They are ready to give you a lot of suggestions. Remember, they are digital natives. They're ready with a lot of solutions. We need to just give them that platform to communicate. The question is about the follow-up activities and methodologies. Yes, exactly. I think an ideal methodology for those who are not, excuse me, in the field of education is project-based learning. PBL or project-based learning is the way to go. So do look into that project-based learning. So this would be, please, the one who would like to have a more practical methodology, do get in touch with me via email. I'm available in Abu Dhabi University under College of Arts and Sciences, and I can communicate further. So project-based learning is the way to go. Whether we do an application, which is on a smaller scale, or a full project-based learning approach, both will be advisable. Yes, so do we have any more questions? All right. Okay. All right, so if you have a question, could you please add it to the Q&A? Yes, so that I am able to give you my answer. Thank you very much, everyone. Ms. Fida, are we done?
Yes, I think we're done, yes. No more questions. I don't see
Thank
any
you very
questions.
much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Yara. Thank you, everyone.